Well, it's high school basketball sectional draw tonight, which means I'm wearing a shirt and tie for one of the few times of the year, really, because I was helped out on the show tonight with Greg Rakestraw doing the live draw show, and Dominic Neely from Courtside, Indiana, joins me. And as you watch the show tonight, Dominic, what are kind of some of your major takeaways as you watched it?
Yeah, I know everyone talks about seeding. I thought for the most part, it looked like some of these sectionals were a lot of times the two best teams should meet up in the sectional, and some of them, obviously, a couple that stand out that are not like that is Pike and Plainfield, right in sectional 11 right away. I think that's a huge matchup. Um, there is some other ones off the top of my head. I think Chesterton and Portage is another one that they're playing first game right away. But I thought for the most part, just seeing it the first time through, it seemed like there's going to be some good matchups in the championship games at all levels.
Yeah, I agree. It looked like a pretty balanced overall grouping, and I'm putting one up here to start out with because this is always one of the better groupings of Class 4A for sure. And kind of to your point, you look at this Fisher's number one in the state. Over 50 game winning streak now they have in the regular season, and it's a tough matchup. You get Westfield or HSC on the playing that first night, which is going to be a fantastic game. And then Noblesville and Zionsville should also be great. But then Carmel, who's been the second best team all year out of this grouping, I would say, also getting a bye into Friday. So kind of to your point in this one, Dominic, it looks like a pretty balanced group. You get two really good games to open with, and then the two best teams out there get a bye in the first round.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be obviously this is probably the best sectional in the state. Um, but you would think your Carmel got the best draw. I know Jim was happy about that. But with Noblesville obviously losing Justin Curry, um, and then on that bottom bracket with Westfield and Hamilton Southeastern, they both gave Fishers a run for their money in the regular season this year. No, Westfield took them to overtime, and I think HSE was really close in the beginning of the year in that rivalry game. Um, so man, it's going to be a brutal sectional. I mean, like I said, Westfield and HSE would have to go through each other, and then Fishers, and then potentially Carmel. So I mean, that's just a gauntlet. But overall, like you said, Fishers and Carmel are the two best teams on the opposite side of the bracket. So
Yeah, and that was a 3-point game earlier this year. Fishers beat Carmel. Carmel is kind of taken on a little bit of you had a little bit of trouble here lately, including a really surprising loss to Warren Central the other night. That was a game that they led by 12 points going into the fourth quarter. Caleb Elkins, who's one of the best 2027 football prospects in the state, hit a 3-pointer at the buzzer to win that game. So Carmel, some of these games happen late in the season. They don't always end up mattering at all. I mean, you get to the sectional and then kind of things start over a little bit. And I think they're still capable of certainly winning this bracket. And you made a good point there. I think Noblesville, going into the year, I thought they were going to be like a top 5 team. And it didn't happen, and in part because Curry had that injury, and it just hasn't kind of happened for them. But definitely a winnable game against Zionsville, I would say, for the Millers. And then that second game, Westfield and HSE, two teams that are playing really well. Drew Hafner has had some huge games late in the year, and then HSE playing their best basketball. This is kind of the team I thought they might be coming into the year with a lot of seniors, and then Varshawn Clark, who's one of the best sophomores in the state. They haven't had a ton of tournament success lately, but they seem to be trending in the right direction right now.
yeah, and I know they just beat Carmel.
Mm-hmm.
Last week or so, and I think Carmel was up on them by like 17 in that game as well. So I don't know. And then, like you said, they were up against by 12 against Warren. But no, HSC, like I said, I seen them play earlier this year and at the Homestead tournament, and they got a lot of pieces, well balanced, senior led. Definitely could be a dangerous team as well.
When you look at you're based out of Fort Wayne. You're up in that area of the state. You see a lot of good teams up that way. What pop was there anything from that direction of the state that kind of popped out to you that was of interest? And a lot of times,
Yeah.
the sectional draw may not always be the most, it's a big deal and it's fun to watch it. Ultimately you still have to win the games that are ahead of you anyway. But was there anything that popped out to you from that area of the state?
Yeah, I mean the 4A sectionals are just four teams, so right to the semifinals. Um, but yeah, in this one, I think all four teams. I mean, I think this is the best sectional if we're talking about 4A in Fort Wayne. Um, Southside and Homestead. I was at that game earlier this year. Now, unfortunately for Southside, their leading scorer, first or second best player, Terrence Jordan, got injured, is out for the year. So that hurts for them. But they lost him in the very next game they played at Wayne in a big senior night game, and Southside went into Wayne and beat them and looked really good. So they're still going to be good. And then Huntington North's been good all year. Wayne has been. They've had moments where they're really good. They've had some up and down as well a little bit. But that's probably where I'll be on Friday night for those two games because I think those are two really good ones. And then I think with the other sectional, the Snyder and Carroll game, I think is going to be interesting. Carroll's kind of had Snyder's number starting last year in the sectional. I think Snyder was up, and then Carroll went on like a 23-0 run in like between the third and fourth quarter last year and beat him in the sectional. This year, I was at the game at Carroll, and Carroll ended up beating Snyder this year as well. So they kind of have their number, and Carroll's interesting. I mean, you kind of have to punch them in the mouth quick and kind of keep an arm's length away from them the whole game because they will grind it out, keep it close, and they have two players that Brody Fisher, they're 6'6" big, and Jack Van Order on the wing who are good. And against Snyder, they kind of just kept it close, and in the third quarter, Brody Fisher and Van Order really got it going and kind of separated, and Snyder could never get back in it. So I think that'll be an interesting one as well.
What are your thoughts on Homestead? It's a team I had a chance to see play against Oak Hill. Uh, Mac Welker is averaging around 21 and 10 per game on the season. I was really impressed with him. His progression, from last
Yeah.
year to this year when I saw him play is pretty dramatic. And in that game, Jacob Kuhlman really knocked down the three. I think he had four in the first half of that game and kind of got them going. And that allowed Welker to kind of move around a little bit easier against that Oak Hill defense. Oak Hill not a big team, it's not they're a 2A team, but really good 2A team. I think they could win the whole thing, but not necessarily a big team. So they did have an advantage that way. But I thought Homestead to me seemed like maybe they're a year away, but also a team that could be dangerous, especially in this sectional here, which will be played at Huntington.
Yeah, Homestead Mac Welker's definitely progressed. He's obviously can make shots from the perimeter. He's got good footwork and moves in the paint. He finishes with both hands. But then his athleticism and explosiveness has definitely made a jump as well. And obviously, it can still get better and still get stronger, obviously. But he's definitely made a jump from last year. And then, yeah, Jake Kuhlman, when I was at the Southside game, he led him with 27. He was, yeah, making shots from everywhere. And he's kind of he's a kid that's not gonna wow you with athleticism, right? He's not just gonna blow past you, but he can get to his spot. And it doesn't matter how long it takes him to get there. He can get there. He can kind of create contact. He can finish. He's crafty. He kind of has a little. He gets into the lane and likes to finish with his right hand a lot sometimes. Um, but he's definitely capable of having big games, which he's had this year. And then Ryder Immel is a sophomore who can really shoot, stretch the floor for them. And then I really think outside, those are kind of their big three, but they do have two, Brogan McNeese and Braylon McNeese, who are brothers, obviously, and they're both about 6'6", 6'5", 6'6", athletic, strong. If they can be consistent and contribute, that could really push them over the edge around this area in 4A.
Yeah, that looks like a one they could definitely win. I want to ask you too. I know you're familiar with these teams here. As
Yeah.
I pull up, we're moving down to 2A briefly here. I want to go back to 4A real quick, but we discussed the path for Westview on the show tonight, and just wanted to get your take on them this year. the team that people around here may not hear about all the time, but I think people are aware of what kind of program they have, and Westview seems to be good year in year out. What do you think about this bracket for them in this Class 2A sectional?
Yeah, obviously, I think it will be Westview and Lakeland or Prairie Heights in the championship. Um, but yeah, Westview's been really good all year. I thought this past week was going to be two games that would definitely challenge them two NLC teams. Right, they played Wawasee on Tuesday, and it was competitive for about 2.5 quarters, and then Westview won by, I forget what it was, 20 something. And then they played at Goshen. I thought that was probably going to be the toughest game out of the year outside of Northridge. And they had to go to Goshen Friday night, and Westview beat them by, I think it was 16. It was up to 20 something. They came out and played really well. But I think with Westview, Austin Slayball is a junior all-star candidate. He's definitely going to be in the conversation to get on that team. He's a 6'1" point guard. He's really hard to keep out of the paint. I mean, he gets into the paint. He obviously finishes for himself. Good vision, good pull up jumper. Caden Grau is a senior 6'4" wing who can really shoot it. I think he's at like 50% for the year from three. He leads them in scoring. Um, Daniel Yoder is like the glue of the team. He averages around 12 or so. And defensively, he can really defend. He's all over the offensive rebounds. He's all over loose balls. He's just the glue of the team. He missed a couple games early in the year with a concussion, and they played some teams they were definitely better than. And you could tell he was missing, right? So he's a really big piece for them. They bring in Pierce Yoder, who's about 6'5", who just stretches the floor. He can shoot the lights out. They got Bryce Yoder, who you'll see. If you watch Westview, he'll stand out because he is a freshman. He might be five. He might be listed like 5'5", but man, he'd be scratching 5'3", I think. He hasn't hit his growth spurt, but his dad played Division 1. His uncle played Division 1. He's really good. He can shoot it. He's scrappy defensively. So they have a complete team. They're gonna play 110%. They're gonna be defensively. They're gonna be in position. They're hard to beat. So yeah, I look for them to definitely win this sectional. And then obviously we can get to that later maybe, but in the regionals, could be a Gary 21st matchup. So
Yeah, going to go through those regional matchups hopefully too. But yeah, Gary 21st. I've seen them play a couple times, and I got to think that when that game that'd be a great game. I think great matchup. And Gary 21st, they play such a tough schedule, and I know Westview does too. But man, it's like they're almost playing a 4A schedule a lot
yeah,
of times, and they do pretty well against it. And it's Terrence Hayes is a really good player. I think he's probably an Indiana All Star in my opinion. I think he's probably a lock actually,
yeah,
but they have a lot of there's other good players on that team as well. This might be the year for them to get through. But like I said, the regional will be really a good game. I think if things go the way we think they will.
yeah, absolutely. That 21st team, they definitely play a schedule. I think they beat Crown Point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Caleb Young, their 6'8" center, is definitely a problem in 2A. I mean, he's a problem at any level, but especially in 2A with his size and his skill down low, and um, Donaldson on the wing and Ron Mosley. So yeah, they're gonna be a tough out in 2A.
Well, let's go back to 4A. I wanted to. I think the game that came up on the bracket that probably dropped the most jaws was the Pike Plainfield matchup
Yeah,
in the semifinal in sectional 11, which will be actually played at Plainfield. And I can't wait for this game. I was, when you start thinking about the draw, you're wondering when this game could happen. And I from a standpoint of like, I'm all for seeding if that's what they want to do. But I
mhm,
definitely wanted to see this game, and I was going to be kind of disappointed if somebody got upset and it wouldn't happen. So the
yeah,
fact that it's actually happening is exciting to me. So, you know, and I have mixed. I feel more strongly about seeding football than I do basketball because I love sectional week in basketball. So I
yeah.
don't want to be, talking out of both sides of my mouth. But I
Mhm.
cannot wait for this game. to me, Pike is playing much better than it did early in the year. It feels to me like the pieces are coming together. Landon Lampley's becoming a guy who I think is going to be a pro in not too long. Isaiah Hill blocks shots better than almost any player I've seen in the last 10 years or so. And then, they got obviously really other good players like Jahari Miller and, just a lot of good pieces. Kenneth Lampley, Ian Makin's playing really good basketball. And then this Plainfield team that's kind of gone into the year fully formed as a unit with Noah Smith and Landon Gilliatt and Harper Baker Land. So, man, to me, like, I cannot wait for this game. It's going to be a great crowd and just a knockdown, drag out
Yeah,
epic game, I think.
for sure. That's huge game. I mean, that's I think if you're looking at statewide, this is got to be the best first round or first round matchup. I guess it's maybe not the first round, um, but yeah, it's going to be a good one. How many high major D1 players are on the floor? 5 or 6. And Harper Baker Lands, I think his jump from, I know it's kind of about Charlie Hughes, his jump from
Mhm.
sophomore to junior year. He's really taken off, and obviously Noah Smith going to DePaul. Um, and then just overall in the sectional, I mean, you look at last year, we're all thinking, okay, Avon, right, last year, and okay, Ben Davis, and Plainfield and Pike and Brownsburg, they're kind of at the bottom, and they go ahead and win it
Yeah.
last year, right? So you never can count out a Lynchy program, and they got a lot of talent as well. I know they started off the season pretty well and kind of had some bumps along the way in the middle and towards the end of the season. But overall, obviously Ben Davis is good. Um, but yeah, Pike and Plainfield is definitely a banger to start the sectional there.
Yeah, that's going to be a great game. And then, yeah, you're right. I mean, Brownsburg came out of this same situation last year. They played Avon in the first game.
Yeah,
Then they played Plainfield, so it's a little bit different, and then played Ben Davis. But roughly the same task here ahead. And it's funny because actually Avon's probably more in the situation Brownsburg was last year, because Avon last year was maybe the favorite to win this sectional. And this year, obviously not. They lost a lot from last year. They're still though. Kind of in that spot Brownsburg was in last year, where they're capable of winning a game and maybe getting hot.
yeah,
Jedediah Manette, one of the best shooters around. So you never know. And then this Ben Davis team, we've kind of been waiting to see, Jay Sean Ladd, Sherman Moss, really good players and have had very good seasons. At times they haven't had that third consistent scorer, I think, that's maybe keeping them from becoming these elite team, but they are capable, I think, of also winning this sectional. Definitely are, I would say. So don't want to count them out either. If it ends up being Pike, Plainfield, Ben Davis, Brownsburg, that looks like a great night of basketball
yeah.
in sectional 11. So you could argue this is maybe the best sectional of anywhere.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Sectional 11, sectional 8, obviously. Sectional 10 used to be always talked
Mhm.
about as the best, and there's still some good teams in there, but I would definitely say this sectional and sectional 8 is kind of now sectional 3 as well is up north is loaded as well. I've been talking about that sectional since I think the start of the year, but definitely some tough ones out there.
Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of going through here to see. I was going to pull up that sectional 3.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that while I
Mhm.
do that and look for it here. Uh, what is your assessment of that one? How do
Yeah.
you think that one may shake out?
Yeah, well, St. Joe got the South Bend St. Joe got the best draw. I think they play the winner of South Bend Adams, Mishawaka, and then Penn plays Michigan City, and then Riley plays LaPorte. So just how many? I mean, South Bend St. Joe, Riley, Penn. Then you got Michigan City, who's had a really good year. LaPorte's had a really good year. South Bend Adams has had a really good year. They're just loaded with a lot of good teams in there. But I've seen Riley play this year in person. I've seen Penn in person. I've seen Adams in person. I've seen St. Joe in person, actually. Here we go. And that, yeah, I mean, you look at those 4 teams on the bottom, they got a heck of a way to get to the champ. Trying to, Penn trying to beat Michigan City. Then if they win that, they potentially got to play Riley or Laporte. Laporte beat Penn last year, upset them, and brings pretty much the same team back. So just a loaded sectional. I want to try to get to that honestly if I can. I don't know if I can on that Friday night. I know I said I would like to get to Huntington, but so there's going to be a lot of options for me. But that Friday night here is looking really good as well.
Yeah, I agree. The bottom half of that bracket, man, that is a really good bottom half.
Yeah.
Have seen. I was hoping to see Penn. I did not get a chance to see them yet in person, but I have seen Caleb Coolin play in the summer and with his. I guess it was at the underclass showcase as well. So very good player, sophomore, going to be a really good one. To me, that South Bend St. Joe team, when you talk about talented teams around the state, I think when they're playing their best, and they had Mount Vernon down, what was it, 15 in the third quarter,
Yeah.
and that hasn't happened very often to Mount Vernon this year. And then they end up losing largely because Luke Ertl just played out of his mind late in the
Yeah.
game. But that St. Joe team, it feels like to me when they're at their best, man, they can beat about anybody in even in 4A.
Yeah, absolutely. They Elijah King, um, definitely going to be a junior all star, and Nick Shrewsbury, and Peyton Miamba, and I think Ethan Roseman is back, I believe.
Yeah, he did play. I think it was last game he played. So
Yeah,
that's huge for them.
yeah, that is because I thought I saw something he might have been out for the year, but
Mhm.
he's back, so that's good. And KJ Avery and Ryder Place, I mean, they have a ton of pieces. Like I said, they're going to be in your face, um, pressure you. They play with the freedom. They play together. They're going to be. They're definitely. I think they are the favorite. I mean, they've beaten Penn. They've beaten Riley. I'm not sure if they. I'm sure they played Adams and beat them. So they've beaten a lot of these teams. But again, I mean, there's so many teams that are capable of winning this thing. Riley's really good. Penn is really good. Laporte's capable of beating teams. Michigan City, Adams. So loaded sectional. I would say South Bend St. Joe is the favorite, but yeah, I think anybody can win this.
And they got the favorable draw out of anybody here. They don't have to play the first game, and that, certainly in Roseman's case, where you're coming back from injury, that can be beneficial
Yeah.
for you as well. But yeah, Riley Laporte, that looks like a great game. Tyrese Jones, having watched him play, he can really light it up. So that should be a fun game. Wanted to pull this one up as well. This is the sectional where Northridge should be the favorite, and I think Brady Scholl. When you talk about potential Indian All-Star players, to me, I've kind of been, I will say, I've been kind of lobbying for him to be on the team, and writing about him and things like that, and talking to people. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's would do well, and I think he's deserving of it. Certainly would help his case if they could win this sectional right here. It's a 5-teamer, and they they have a bye into the semifinal. But this Northridge team is pretty good, and I think they have a chance to do some damage.
Yeah, absolutely. He definitely needs to be an Indiana All Star. I mean, I was at the Riley game at Northridge, and he just affects. Uh, he affects the game. Obviously, affects the game, but in the paint. I mean, Tyrese Jones. A lot of times he's able to get into the paint and finish and maneuver around guys and finish. And against Shoal, it was like he would get to his spot and he'd kick it out, right? Where other times he's getting to the rim and finishing it. But Shoal just affects, he blocks so many shots. And then if he's not blocking it, he's affecting it. He's making you think about it. Um, I think the matchup here is definitely Goshen and Northridge. Goshen beat him the first time around at Goshen. Levi Sawatsky he can get it going in a hurry, and he did that against them the first time towards the end of the game. I think it'd been late third, early fourth. He started really hitting shots from the perimeter, and Braxton Klein, their point guard's a good junior guard for them as well, and um, so they're definitely going to be the biggest challenge for Northridge. But I would definitely pick Northridge to win this. Hayden Johnson has been really good all year for Northridge as well. Big time shot maker, a kid who can get into the paint as well. I think he's going to St. Francis. But those two have been dynamite all year. And then there some of their role players, if they're able to start making some more shots as well, like they've been lately, yeah, they're gonna be hard to beat for anyone in that sectional.
Yeah, they're not a team with a ton of firepower beyond those two, but sometimes it helps when you just know who you are, and they definitely do. and I
Right.
think they obviously get the most out of those other role players as well. So they will be the team I think to watch there. Wanted to pull this one up to sectional one, where Crown Point heavy favorite. They got Kingston Rhodes back. I know he was at least they were planning to get him back, and I haven't checked to see if they did actually. I think they did on either Friday or Saturday night. So that is a huge. I think he's a big piece to that team that they need, even though they've got great players around him. But feels like he makes a lot of things happen for them, and they should be a pretty heavy favorite, I think, to win this sectional, and potentially get back to the semi-state, and then we can see if they can
Yeah.
get through there and who they would see there. But really like this Crown Point team and what they've done all season.
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely the big favorite in this game, this sectional. I think Lake Central might be the second best team here, and I think they just played Lake Central and beat them pretty good. Um, but yeah, Crown Point just has a ton of options, especially if have Kingston Rhodes back. He's definitely their kind of their engine. Obviously, he's their point guard. But then you added Mason Darrell, right? Bellarmine commit and Dikembe Shaw, who is a lock for Indiana All Star, will be a Mr. Basketball candidate, and Bryce Peters and MJ Wilson off the bench I think he had a 33-point
Yeah,
game recently. He's super talented. The Lux kid off the bench. They just have a ton of pieces defensively. They get after it. Obviously, Coach Swan, really good coach. So yeah, I see them getting out of here um, pretty easily.
yeah, I think so too. And Lake Central, well coached, good team. But that's probably haven't watched them. They came down and played at the North Central holiday tournament, and they're just they're a little bit limited by talent when you compare them to somebody like Crown Point. But yeah, when you look at and it's a good point on Dikembe Shaw because man, his efficiency, his numbers efficient wise are just off the charts this year. And I know Luke Ertl probably I wouldn't say he has it wrapped up, but I think he might have it wrapped up for
Yeah,
Mr. Basketball. It looks like it's just one of those things. But Shaw, hopefully, I think he'll be in that mix. When you talk about the finalists, and I think that's just if you make that finalist list, I think it's just cool that you get honored a little bit extra for that, and I think he's certainly deserving of that.
for sure. And obviously, he's going to get votes, right? Because just how the system works, like if, Ertl's going to get most of the votes around Indianapolis. So in the region, right, people that are voting from there are probably going to vote Dikembe Shaw. So if you're another
Mhm.
like a Noah Smith, might not get as many votes, first place votes when people are voting for Ertl in that region or whatever the case might be. So, um, but no, yeah, Dikembe, I think the first time I seen him was his sophomore year, and he's just obviously he was really advanced at that point, but he's just continually gets better. And I think at that point, I always wanted him to kind of take over games more as a sophomore and as a junior, especially in the tournament when we got to. I was at both of those semi-states. I just wanted him to kind of take it over, and I've kind of seen that a lot more his senior year here of just being able to take over games and assert his dominance. So, um, yeah, love Dikembe Shaw.
Well, while we're talking about Luke Ertl, we'll pull up his bracket here. Mount Vernon went on a roll last year, made it to the semi-state, and had Jeffersonville down 10 points, 8 to 10 points in the fourth quarter, and then Trey Singleton kind of took the game into his hands, and they ended up winning in a really close game, good game at Newcastle in the early game, and then Jeffersonville ended up going on and winning, and of course winning state after that. So, but Mount Vernon was right there toe to toe. This sectional last year, when you look at this bracket, was actually tougher. I think Anderson was better last year. Obviously, Greenfield Central had Braylon Mullins, Mr. Basketball, playing at UConn now. Pendleton Heights though is kind of a sleeper here. Mount Vernon beat them earlier this year, a game I was at, and they handled them. I think it got out to be about a 10 to 15 point game. But Pendleton Heights is a team that's a little bit of a sleeper, along with Anderson. So that first game will be a good one to see who comes out of that and plays Greenfield Central in the semifinal. But to me, Dominique, I think this is definitely Mount Vernon's to win. I would say, and
Yeah.
they actually got a pretty good draw here too.
Yeah, they absolutely got a good draw. With Anderson and Pendleton Heights having good years, and even Greenfield Central. I remember when Greenfield Central played Mount Vernon this year. I believe it was tied going to the fourth. I was kind of following along. I remember at a game I was at, and then I think Mount Vernon was up, and then all of a sudden it was tied going to the fourth. So I think they gave them a pretty good game. Obviously, they got the Mullins brother or Braylon's two brothers. I think they're twins, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, the other three contenders are definitely at the bottom here. And then I was at this sectional last year, and I still got gripes about it, man. They didn't stream it, right? The Mount Vernon Greenfield Championship game was not streamed. I couldn't watch. I only saw highlights when that was like the game of the year almost. I think it went to overtime or double overtime. Were you at that game?
I was. It was awesome.
Okay, yeah, I
It
know,
was,
but man, I wish I could have watched it. But no, this is definitely Mount Vernon as the favorite. But I do think that championship game will whoever comes out of that bottom bracket will give them a game for sure.
yeah, that was probably the game of the year, and it felt like Braylon Mullins did everything possible to win that game, and Luke Ertl just did a little bit more somehow. And
Yeah,
it's one of those things that sticks with you. You see Mullins, he kind of just, as Mount Vernon celebrating, went back to sit in the chair on his bench there, just kind of by himself and take it all in. And that kid, obviously had a great year. He's a McDonald's All-American, Mr. Basketball easily, and but man, that was a heartbreaking moment for him to see not be able to win that sectional. And like I said, did everything but win it. But yeah, great game, and that kind of solidified in my mind Ertl, putting him on a different level. The fact
yeah,
that he could win that game, it was a phenomenal game.
for sure, absolutely.
Well, let's bounce around here. I was looking, and we already covered that one. This 2A sectional, and I don't know how familiar are you, Dominique, with
Mhm.
these teams here, but this is one of the more interesting sectionals to me. Sheridan is a team that has not won a sectional in forever, since 1983. But they will have to get through a Taylor team that they played earlier this year, a game I was at, that's very athletic and physical. So Sheridan's going to have to hit some shots here. Trey Page, Billy Shepard's grandson, averaging about 18, a little more than 18 a game, can really shoot it from three. And then the bottom half of this bracket has Lapel and Frankton, two teams that are really good as well. So, to me, this looks like it's kind of anybody. Lapel might be the best team in here, but Sheridan, it kind of feels like it might be their year. So, just wanted to highlight this one because I think this 2A sectional is going to be really competitive, and you have a lot of teams that know each other. Really, Lapel and Frankton are in the same district, and then Sheridan and Taylor are conference rivals. So you got a lot of familiarity here.
Yeah, and I think with Frankton, I did see them play this year, and I really liked the freshman Ashton Brobson. 6'7", 6'8". He runs the point guard for him. It's pretty interesting to watch. Coach's son.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Trey Bennett, the game I was at was awesome. I think he had 25. He's about 6'5", 6'6", somewhere in that range, and just physically strong, especially at the 2A level. He really does a lot of his damage in the paint. And then I really like Blake Nickham as well. I think he's a 6'5" kid on the wing, who athletic, strong, hit a few threes, got to the rim. So I mean, as a 2A team, they definitely have some good size with Brobston and Bennett, and then obviously Nickham as well. Well coached. I was at the game when they played Blackford, and that was just like a nightmare for Blackford. I don't think. I mean, it was they scored 24 total points that game, which was definitely the worst game of the year, and it was like a lid was on the bucket for him. But no, Frankton has definitely got the size. I know Lapel is having a good year, and Sheridan as well. I think is Sheridan in Hamilton County
Yes.
over
Yeah.
there.
No.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I know they're having a good year. So this is when you guys are going through, I was looking at this sectional in 2A and thinking this is a good one here. So
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. See if Sheridan can get through and beat Taylor again. That's going to be a tough matchup for them. Also wanted to, and we did this one already. I apologize. I'm trying to go back through here and wanted to look at this one as well. 2A, this sectional is going to be at Cardinal Ritter, and kind of an interesting situation at University. where Joshua Henderson was part of the team and leading them in scoring and rebounding, and now he's not with them. And they were,
Yeah.
they made it to the state finals last year, and I thought we're a team, and maybe they still are. They do have three seniors leading them, and the next leading scorers are all seniors. And I guess Josh McGee wasn't there last year, but he's been a big part of this year's team. But it's still a team, I think, and their draw is actually pretty good here. All these teams have winning records in this 6-team sectional, but just kind of an odd situation. I think University can get to the championship game, whether they can beat. They actually lost to Park Tudor, a game I was at very early in the season when they were fully had their whole team. But I don't know. Cardinal Ritter is very good. Devin Bolden averaging more than 20 points and about 13 rebounds. Riverside only has one loss. They have a kid named Jace Bennett, who's a big, who is a senior, and he's averaging about 14 a game. So they're kind of a sleeper team too, but just kind of a weird situation here that you don't see happen very often, especially for a team that had, or has maybe a chance to make a pretty good run.
Yeah, I did like that university team with like Faisal Muhammad and
Mm-hmm.
McGee and Blake Gray. Terrific backcourt. I do like Devin Bolden a lot. The big kid from Ritter. I seen him play. Where was that at? Was it the Lawrenceburg? Where was that? One of
They
the
played it,
tournaments.
yeah.
Oh,
They
was it
played at
Lawrenceburg?
Lawrenceburg. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and I've seen him multiple times, but I think he's a difference maker, and if that ends up being the game, in the championship, maybe University, right? That's obviously University lost their big, and Bolden is um he's I mean both ends. I mean he's blocking shots, he's rebounding, and he's scoring in the paint. He does a really good job down there for Ritter, but obviously Park Tudor's right there as well. So I know they're having a good year. So this is going to be a competitive one. um I don't know who I'd pick with. If Henderson was still at University, I'd have them as the favorite. But I think it's gonna be a good one. It's gonna be close.
Yeah, that matchup, Bolden and Jace Bennett in that Ritter Riverside game
Yeah,
should be a good one. This in Park Tudor, I think might be the favorite here with
yeah,
with the team that they have. They made it to the semifinals of the Marion County tournament this year, which is a big deal
yeah,
for them to be able to do that. Moving to 3A, this is the one I was looking for earlier. This sectional to me, is 3A's got a few good ones. This one might be the best because you have two teams here, Shelbyville and Roncalli, that are on the opposite sides of the bracket here, but both very senior heavy. Shelbyville has not won a sectional in over 20 years, and this might be their best chance to do it. I kind of like their draw that they got. They get the bye, obviously, and then they have to play the home team in Greenwood, which is a good team too that I think could win it if things go right. But Shelbyville with Caden Claxton, Mar Nicholson, they shoot the three at a really high rate, and they're veteran, which I like this time of year. But and you're going to have one of Ron Collier or New Pal knocked out in the first round. So things kind of shape up maybe for Shelbyville to make a run here. But this one also very, very competitive 3A sectional.
yeah. Absolutely. I think Shelbyville's having a really good year. Um, and they've had they play a good schedule as well, which we definitely look at a lot on our podcast. Is who are some of these teams playing? So Shelbyville's had a really good year. I know New Pal is young. Obviously, they lost a lot from last year, but I know. Remind me of the kid's name, the sophomore. Is it Davidson?
Yeah, Davison. It's Davison.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. He's obviously can fill it up. I know Roncalli's having a really good year as well. So yeah, this is definitely going to be competitive. Um, is that Rushville up there? Consolidated?
Yeah.
Aren't they having a decent year as well, or no?
They're having a better year. This is a tough, they didn't get much of a draw here having to play Greenwood. Greenwood's a good team. I actually covered the Greenwood Shelbyville game back in December, and Shelbyville won that game at home by about 10 points. But Greenwood at times has been very explosive on offense. They have some pretty good size and shooting, but they're not super physical, I would say, but they have a lot of skill, and I think on the right night they could beat Shelbyville in that semifinal game.
Cool. Yeah, that should be a good sectional.
And then
Doing
Beech
great.
Grove, Indian Creek's having a down year, so Beech Grove should have a good chance to get in there into the semifinals. Well, they're a talented team too that they could play a spoiler role perhaps in that one. And trying to see where I haven't got to yet. We already did that one. Did that one. Okay. Well, we got to the ones I wanted to talk about, Dominique. Is there any others out there that you were interested in or
Yeah.
wanted to?
I wanted to know from you, because we do this a lot during the sectional time. Is any any sleeper teams you see that could, that you might have in your mind that you think might I don't know, win the sectional or maybe win a couple games that maybe people aren't looking at?
Yeah, I would look at. Well, let me pull this up here. So sectional 10. I know we've talked about Lawrence North. I really like Lawrence North's team this year. I think they are. To me, their chemistry is really good. I think they have maybe even overachieved from what people thought. Just because of the players they lost from last year. Stink Robinson, obviously, but then lost some players, Kai McGrew and Jamar Thomas from last year's team that you expected to have going into this year. So that said, they are a pretty heavy favorite in sectional 10 at Tech. But I also, because of what Warren Central was able to do against Carmel, and I just know the way they're kind of wired under Chris Byers. They're just tough to beat in the sectional. Good defensive team, and now they have JJ Craig, who came over or he was at Warren, then went to LC. Now he's back at Warren, so they got some scoring punch there again, and then they got a draw to get them into the semifinal. And I also would look at LC potentially as a sleeper there, just because of the talent that they have. So I think the winner of that game, and honestly, LN and North Central are such rivals going back forever that I wouldn't completely count out North Central either. And all that said, I think LN will win this sectional, but I would maybe classify Warren and LC as someone that I would have my eye on if I'm LN. I wouldn't. They only beat LC by 2 points, a game I covered early in the year. So I'm not saying they're going to lose, but that's one I would probably look at.
Yeah.
And then elsewhere in 4A, I mean, I would classify Pendleton Heights as maybe one of those teams. Having watched them a couple times, they just have really good role players, and then a guy who can score 20 to 25 in a given night, and even more than that in Cooper Sims, who's going to St. Francis. So, I think they could give Mount Vernon a pretty good game. They're going to have to kind of muck it up and, really limit Ertl, which no one really does. So I don't know if that's possible, but or maybe just hope that Mount Vernon's not completely firing like they can from the 3-point line. But I would say them, and then I think a team that people aren't talking about as much, and I think are probably the favorite to win their sectional is Whiteland down at Columbus North. They're in that sectional, and I think that's sectional 14 at Columbus North. And again, they're 17-5. They won the sectional last year. They lost a heartbreaker to Terre Haute North that they led. I think they're up like 14 in the fourth quarter, actually pretty late into the fourth quarter, and then lost that game. But I think I think they've got a chance to win that one again. And then, I can't remember who they would play in the regional, but I think they're another team in 4A that probably gets a little bit of, overlooked around here. So those are a few, I think. I think Whiteland's probably the favorite to win that, but Columbus North has a good team. And Whiteland will have to beat Franklin again, which, rival team. They've already beat them twice. So that's always tough to do as well.
For sure. And I was gonna say, I think for me, I know last year I was like, man, I really feel like Columbia City's gonna beat Northwood last year, and they ended up beating them, and they ended up getting to the regional. Now they're kind of one of the favorites in 3A North, but I don't know. Up in this area, I'm looking at Wayne as kind of a sleeper around this area. I know in the sectional they have the worst record, but I just think they have a lot of pieces, and they have so many stretches where they look really good. and they have a lot of talent. I mean, LaShawn Green was a starter back from last year's Wayne team. And, they had all the talent last year that graduated. He's a senior now. He's had a really good year. They have a 6'6" sophomore, Javante Eldridge, who's I think he just got offered by Vanderbilt for football. Big time football kid, but he's 6'6", super athletic and strong in the paint, can really finish and rebound, has a great motor. They got Uriah Williams, who's a 6'8" junior, who's talented. Um, Everin Atkinson, I think, is the most slept on kid in Fort Wayne. He's had an awesome year. He went from being the freshman point guard on the freshman team last year to starting this year, and he's had
Hmm.
multiple. He had a 28-point game, a 24, 20. He's been awesome. I call him. His name's Everin Atkinson. I call him EA Sports is what I call him. His initials. But he's been phenomenal for them. Tyree Eldridge has had multiple. He's a junior guard, left-handed. He's had multiple big games this year for them. So they just have a ton of pieces. And like I said, if everything clicks at the right time, they're a problem. I mean, they had Homestead down by 16 at halftime a couple weeks ago, and Homestead ended up coming back and beating them. But I just think they could be dangerous, and I think they play Huntington North first. I think they could sneak around and beat them, and then Homestead and South they're really familiar with, obviously same conference, so they're not going to be intimidated or anything like that. They're going to be ready to roll. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, as you brought up Columbia City, I wanted to talk about that one briefly too. Columbia City plays West Noble that first game. Fairfield is a good team there. They would play in the semifinal, and then Northwood is on the other side of the bracket with Tippecanoe Valley and Wawasee. So
Yeah,
Columbia City, I think Dominic, they after last year, they've got some of those same guys back, Owen Marshall and Landon Richmond. So they're a very good team, and it feels like this could be a year for them to make a pretty serious run. The 3A North is interesting to me. I don't, I think the South, everybody's kind of assuming, and probably rightly so, Silver Creek is just such a
yeah,
juggernaut of a team. I
yeah.
don't, they're going to be really tough to beat, but the North, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of this could be a year for somebody like Columbia City to get through.
Yeah. In this sectional, Fairfield's having a good year, but I've seen them play in person and on stream a little bit. I think Columbia City is just the heavy favorite in this one. And another kid, like you said, Landon Richmond, he's going to Huntington. Owen Marshall's going to Bethel. Um, those two obviously stand out and are really good. But Ian St. John, a sophomore that starts for them, is another kid who can really fill it up when he's on. I mean, he can hit the threes. He has a nice little pull up game. He's probably like 5'8" or 5'9", but he's got long arms. He's a gamer. And then Trey Deckman and Josh Eberly, great role players, kids who can make open threes, defend, play hard, make the right plays. They got a good fan base. They play for each other. A lot of seniors, so they're poised to make a run. I will say on the bottom half of the bracket, Wawasee is interesting. Stephen Akaze is 6'7" forward for them, who was at Tippecanoe Valley last year.
Mm-hmm.
Is at Wawasee now. He's having a really good year. He's a difference maker in the paint. He can also step out and shoot as well. So it'll be interesting. I think they'll definitely get past Tippy Valley. That Northwood and Wawasee game would be interesting. And I know when Columbia City and Wawasee played earlier in the year, I know it was a close game. I can't remember I think it was like an 8-point game or something like that. Columbia City won a low scoring game. So it'll be interesting, but I definitely think Columbia City is poised, and they were on our podcast to start the year as we always try to pick one team from the north and the south in each class as a kind of a team we think will have a chance to get to state, and they were definitely on our podcast. So we've thought highly of them all year, and they've lived up to it this year.
One more 3A North here for you. Blackhawk
Hmm.
Christian Angola, that first round game looks like a doozy in this sectional, and probably could decide who wins. Does Blackhawk have do you think they've got the team this year to win this sectional and
Yeah,
potentially go beyond?
yeah, they're definitely the favorite in my opinion. They have it's a lot of good pieces, right? Bryce Lacrosse, sophomore, who just keeps getting better and better. I know when they played Lures, um, he had a really good game, and I remember someone in the stands turned around and was like, "I thought he could just only shoot." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, he can do. He's getting a lot better at everything else. He's getting past guys. He's pulling up in the mid range and hitting shots. Obviously, he's still hitting threes, but he's getting a lot better. Drake Sefton he's like, I think he's the third Sefton now to come
Mhm.
through there in the last few years. He's a sophomore. He's about 6'4", extremely athletic. And we talk about a motor. I mean, he's just all over the place, rebounding, defending at a high level, blocking shots. He's starting to hit the shots from the perimeter consistently as well. Um, they also have um, O'Neal. First name's escaping me at the moment. Is it Jaden O'Neal, who's had some big games this year as well? 6'4" kid that's athletic, and then obviously Briggs Pardon, who's uh, he was at Carroll, was at Blackhawk last year and this year, and it's their point guard and a kid who can get downhill. He's going to Indiana Tech to play in college. They did lose one of their kids that was a starter and a kid who could really score it. Peyton Reinhardt, he's not with the team anymore, so that hurts. And he's been away from the team probably for a month and a half or so. So they've been playing without him. But I definitely think Blackhawk is the favorite in this one. Angola would definitely be the second team there in this sectional, and then there's other teams in here that, I mean, Fort Wayne this year has just been so. I mean, Dwangers had Snyder down by 13 in the fourth quarter, so then Snyder came back and beat him. So Dwanger is capable as well with some guards that can really make shots. George Pori, the Kaufman kid, I think it's the PFW's coach's son. Um, so there's definitely like Dwenger might be a sneaky team in here, but I think Blackhawk definitely is the favorite.
Well, we went longer than I even expected. Dominic Neely knows his stuff from Courtside, Indiana, so I'm glad to have him on tonight. We'll have to do this again. I'm going to try to break down the sectionals a little bit more, maybe go class by class or something like that. So would love to have you on again and talk a little bit of more basketball, but appreciate you doing this, man.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, Kyle. As always.
You bet. We'll have plenty more coverage at IndyStar.com. I posted our or my takeaways from the sectional tonight, and then like I said, we'll have plenty more throughout the next week or so leading up to the sectional. But appreciate everybody joining me here and watching the show tonight. And I'm going to take this tie off and probably not wear it again until next year, or unless I go to a wedding or something. But appreciate appreciate everybody popping on here, and especially Dominic for joining me. And we'll talk to you soon.